Here's the complainant.
Mr. Alexander, members of the board, if a man is married, not divorced, and is not separated, isn't he supposed to have a wife? Isn't that the real purpose of a man getting married? I've been a teacher and principal for a long number of years, and I've come to the point of making up my mind to break away from the narrowness and the provincialisms of a community that lives in the long-forgotten past. So I've come here to New York and tried to establish a home and make a place and cut away the shackles of the past. I'm in the midst of doing just that. And at this time, my wife, who's supposed to be a helpmate and companion, wants to pack up and go back to a community 1,000 miles away. 1,000 miles away to a community barren without intelligence or justice. And as far as I'm concerned, it's away from civilization. I want to know if I am married. It seems to me that I'm really not married after all. It's just like being married and not married.
Mr. Alexander, members of the board. My husband is a fancy man and a fastidious man. I can't eat that, and I can't pay bills with it. The only thing I know to do is to go where I have come from and practice the profession, which I am, a teacher. I see no future here. I need hard cash to pay my bills with.
Well, your husband says that he wants to establish a home and a marriage and have love, and he feels that you ought to be associated with him in doing that and remain up here and establish a home with him.
Yes, but you can't eat love.
Well, now, your wife says that she has a position down there as a teacher. Do we understand that you can't be a teacher up here? In other words, there are certain restrictions of an academic nature, and you can be a teacher down there, but so far you're not eligible to be a teacher up here. And so you want to go back where you're familiar ground, and where you have a position really waiting for you. Now, how about that?
Well, that isn't necessarily true, Mr. Alexander and members of the board. If a person is eligible to teach in one part of the country, if they have graduated from an accredited college, they are in turn eligible to teach anywhere in the United States.
Well, I think you're introducing a new element, but as long as you do it, I'll take you at your word. Why aren't you teaching up here?
I came up here in order to get established, but it takes time, it takes contact, it takes knowing people. But in the meantime, I have a wife and 2 children to support. So I'm working at another field in order to carry on the responsibilities of a husband.
Well, isn't that also true of your wife? I mean, she's trying to get established.
Well, I feel like until she does, it's also all right if she would work at something else until she does get established as a teacher.
Now, what do you suppose she could do?
Well, there are many honorable jobs. There's a chambermaid, waitress, clerk, secretary. There are many positions she could get to be a helpmate other than teaching and be with her husband.
And so we can have a clear understanding here. I understand that the children are beyond high school age and really are not a problem so far as the element of support is concerned?
That's correct. We have 2 children. One is a sophomore in college and
yes,
the other will be a freshman.
So that actually this isn't a case of little dependent children. Now, what answer have you to give your husband?
I came here to attend summer school this summer. And I feel as if a person should do the thing that he enjoys doing most. I have devoted quite a few years to teaching, and that's what I want to do. Not take a job that's someone who has the mentality of a 4th grade pupil.
How do you feel about that?
Well, Mr. Alexander, members of the board, I am also a teacher. In fact, I've been a principal for a number of years, and I feel that I'm even more highly educated than my wife. I'm willing to make the sacrifice in order to hold our family together and to be established. I realize that I don't intend to continue permanently in my present position, but with education and qualifications, you will eventually work up to the position that you're qualified for. But things just don't work automatically. In the meantime, it's not fair that husband and wife should be separated because of fancies of being a teacher. I feel that a husband in marriage is more important than the pride of being a teacher.
How do you feel about that?
I feel as if a person should go where there's security and a future. I see no future here.
Do you enjoy teaching?
Yes, I do.
Are you reasonably convinced that you can't get a position here?
I'm not certain, but I don't think so.
Well, if you're not certain and your husband wants you here, why do you want to go back there?
Because I have an opening there. I don't have an opening here.
Well, now, we want to ask you this. Do you feel that there are some things more important than marriage?
Well, some things that's more important in marriage is to go where there's the greatest security and the greatest future.
Well, your wife is making a great point of security. Now, what about that?
Well, there's really no real security as a teacher in the South because, in fact, you have no tenure law there. And a tenure law, as you know, is a law that you cannot be fired after several years of service. And there, in fact, my position was taken from me because of no tenure law, just for political reasons. The specific reason that my position was taken.
Yes, well, we're
was
going to interrupt you and ask that you don't get into the realm of politics. And also, I think that we have to be careful about some of the things that you say. When you say there's no tenure law in the South, that's Tenure.
That's correct.
You're not speaking of all of the South. You're speaking of a certain state, are you
Certain
not?
state. That's
Just
correct.
one state.
That's correct.
And there's no law there which provides for what?
Tenure for the teacher's protection against being fired without a just cause.
So you feel she has no security there?
That's correct. She has no security there. In fact, there's no real security anywhere in the world. The only real security in life is to have love in a successful marriage. I feel that's more security than anything else in the world.
Well, now, what do you feel about this marriage? I think the mediators are very much interested, and we can take plenty of time here to settle this issue because I think it means a great deal to these people, and it can affect their entire future. Do you love this man?
Yes, but I can't eat that.
Well, do you feel that you've gotten very much out of this marriage?
I have been married for quite a few years, and I don't have a decent thing to show. I have brothers and sisters who owns property, who have beautiful homes and a car, a better education than I have because I've had to work. And by having been married these number of years and been a faithful and good wife, I still don't have anything to show for it. It seems to me that how can two wrongs make one right? Should I keep making the same mistake over and over again? I made mistakes before in moving around. Shall I make the same mistakes again?
Well, members of this board, I think the issue is clear. We have here a case of a woman who feels that her future, her security, is in this particular state. The husband feels that his future is in this state. It's as simple as that. And he feels that his wife belongs with him. You've heard her reply. Now, how do you feel about this, Dr. Foster?
Well, the case of this husband and wife surely illustrate how deeply rooted one may be to a given area, geographical area. The husband is more at home here in the north and the wife more at home in the south.
I think we should ask, if I may interrupt here,
Yes.
by way of illuminating the entire picture, what part of the country, sir, we address the husband, did you originally come from?
I came from the north originally.
And the wife?
The South.
The south.
So that part of the tension here is, I think, due to rootage in a given geographical area. But the issue, the primary issue, it seems to me, is one of values. What is the greater value? Is it to have security of position and of income and of material things? Or is the greater value to be sharing together in married life, to maintain the home and to provide a center for the children, although they are nearly grown? And it seems to me that it can be resolved only in terms of how much each cares for the other. What is the more important thing? Is it security? Is it job? Is it car and home? Or is there something that is deeper in life which they're seeking and which they have shared in?
Well, I think the woman has made clear just where her loyalties are.
Well, and if that is true, there doesn't seem to be any ready way to reconcile this. That is, they have reached an impasse and they disagree as to the values of their married life. And no one on the outside can resolve this. I would not want to say arbitrarily that you shall do this or shall do that, because it boils down to an inner decision, a matter of values, of sensitiveness to each other. And in terms of that, it seems to me the final decision must be made.
Well, Dr. Montague, is there any reason why, and I am not a mediator here, but I'm conducting these proceedings, and I'm trying to preserve some degree of order, is there any reason why this must be a permanent decision? In other words, isn't there such a thing as a temporary separation?
Oh, indeed there is. And I would suggest that this is a case in point where there appear to be differences which at the moment may seem to be irreconcilable ones, but given a little further thought and discussion and reflection, and in the light also of a newer understanding which I think both these very charming people could benefit from, namely that marriage is a cooperative venture. If it isn't that, it isn't anything. You don't marry to get something out of the marriage exclusively, but you only get as much out of the marriage as you put into it. You can't make a withdrawal without making an investment first.
Now, how does that jibe with this question of a temporary separation?
Well, it jibes in this sense that I think this is something that both of these people must now reflect upon. As to their past mistakes, these must be regarded as experiences. I mean, experience is a very hard schoolmaster and a very good one, but the fees are somewhat heavy. Why not make a profit on this past experience and see whether you cannot possibly come to some decision which will be a happy one. This doesn't necessarily mean that you stay together. This may mean that you permanently separate. On the other hand, it might mean that you might come to a closer understanding of each other's needs.
Now, when we put that all together, what is your conclusion, Dr. Montague?
My conclusion is that one ought to give this matter a great deal more thought. I would say give it a month, if that is possible, of serious hacking over, of serious reflection, of teasing out all the little details. And remember this, that you have spoken of love, that love essentially is an interest in the welfare of the other. You have to stop thinking of yourselves and begin thinking of each other.
Well, Dr. Montague, in addition to describing the symptoms here, we do want a conclusion and of some kind. Now, would you suggest that this meditation and reflection be done in one place or another? I mean, geographically, where is this going to be done?
Oh, since they're here in New York, I would suggest that it might be done here for that portion of the time in which they remain together in New York, but that there is not the least objection to the wife returning to the South and continuing communication with her husband, and in the light of this communication, evaluating her experience at home.
Ms. Hurst?
Well, a rather outstanding characterization here to me has been, whether it's conscious or unconscious, the attitude of the wife. Now, you, Mr. Alexander, have asked this lady 2 or 3 times whether she loves her husband. She has been a little evasive. she is disturbed. She is a little bitter. She is thinking of previous experiences. I don't know whether you have uprooted before and tried a change of environment or not, but apparently she is bruised somewhere, and bruised badly. And she hasn't quite the resistance within her that this situation is going to require. Now, your husband made rather a pertinent observation, it seemed to me, and one I would like for you to remember, if you will. He said the great security is the inner security of caring for one another, of two people making the struggle together. Now, your husband has uprooted himself, or has been uprooted, as the case may be. He is now in what I think we would all agree personally is a little bit more promising in some aspects of living than where you have come from, the social circumstances and many advantages. Now, you are a literate and an intelligent woman, and I can't feel that you are going to be defeated by this environment. It seems almost obvious that you can adjust, if not in the teaching world immediately, certainly making an adjustment of dignity that is suitable to your character and equipment. Whither thou goest, I go is rather a basic line here. Either I would suggest that you two people try to make a go of it here and take the whacks if they come, because after all, you are not so far along in your lives that you can't submit to the blows, as they may fall in the struggle to get adjusted in this incredible city of opportunity and possible defeat. Or if it is to be a separation, it would seem to me that a basis upon which this agreement might be made would be for you to go back and teach for a year and see how you enjoy being on the desk job down there with the husband with whom you have lived all these years, living another life in another world. I doubt very much that you will be reconciled to it at the end of the year, regardless of the fact that your sisters and your sisters-in-law may have a car and a bigger house. You're throwing away a great deal. I don't think your husband can afford to go back to a community where he apparently has suffered a frustration or a minor defeat, let us say. The decision is yours.
Specifically, why were you discharged?
Simply, it was purely jealousy. It was the real foundation. But they told me because I owed personal bills. But what teacher or principal does not owe personal bills?
You mean you were discharged from a public position, in your opinion, because of some private reason?
That's right.
But whatever the reason is, you're unable to teach or be a principal there.
That's correct.
And you can't get a recommendation. Is that true?
Not from the job I left.
Yes.
That's correct.
Now, because of that, you feel, and I address the wife, that your future is in the South. And do you feel now, and as long as Miss Hurst has pointed up this question, do you feel that you love your husband enough to locate permanently up here in the North? Or do you feel that this teaching position that you have and the security which it gives you emotionally and financially means more to you than living with your husband? Which do you feel?
I feel if I could get a job in my field, that I would be happy here. But I would not be happy doing something else that I'm not qualified for.
You don't want to be a chambermaid or a waitress?
No, I don't.
And would you want to return to the South? When are you due there for the...
School opens the 2nd of September.
And you want to return there, and would you consider coming back here?
Providing I get a position.
Dr. Montague?
This is, of course, a very difficult situation to find oneself in, and all my sympathies are in this particular connection with the wife. And I would ask her, however, in view of the fact that your husband has stated that if you are eligible to teach in the state in the South, then you are eligible to teach in the North, as if that is true, why should there be any really great difficulty which a little time couldn't solve in achieving a job in the field to which you are so passionately devoted?
May I ask, you say you can't eat love.
No, I can't.
Well, that is true in a sense. Now, may I ask you, sir, are you in a position to make a simple living for you and your wife at this time, assuming that she's going to remain here.
That's correct, I am.
And that isn't going to satisfy you until you do adjust yourself and orient yourself to the new world of New York.
He does not make enough to take care of the children, pay rent, and
Well, of course, that's a point of view
take
that
care
is
of
a
the
little
bills
confused.
that we have already.
Yes. I'm wondering whether anything is accomplished by trying to use pressure on either one of these people. I think that they have been forthright in setting forth their position. I think the wife's position is very clear. Apparently, she doesn't love the man enough to remain here. Is that true?
Speaking of, I love him, but we owe bills, and I want to clear them up because I would not like to leave a place owing people.
Well, would you consider coming back as soon as you've cleared up some of the bills? You're going to pay a lot of these bills, aren't you?
Yes, that's why I want to work.
Well, the board recognizes that ideally there is no question but that these people should remain together. And there's no
May
reason...
I say something? I didn't make these bills by myself. These bills were made when he was down there. And I've been carrying on when he was out of work. My husband was out of work 2 years. I kept the family going the 2 years until he was located in New York. I want to make myself clear.
But may I illustrate a point there? She means I was unemployed as a teacher, probably, for 2 years. But I've been a licensed embalmer just about all my life, and I worked all my life. She's never been without sole income from me. And during the time in which I've been in New York, I weekly sent her money to contribute with the family. Although I've been out of the teaching position in the South for 2 years, I have not been out of work for the past 2 years.
Well, now, this kind of discussion, you see, could go on indefinitely, and I've always felt that one of the benefits of a mediation proceeding is that the mediators lend an atmosphere which does away with the bickering, which we get a sample of. Now, this goes on all the time. So may we ask you, Dr. Montague, under all the circumstances, do you feel that since this isn't irrevocable, and there are trains and airplanes and means of communication, do you think that it would be good, the climate being the way it is, for her to remain here, or do you think she ought to have her way and go down south?
No, I think it would be to the advantage of both of them if the wife returned down south and the husband worked out their mutual destiny here, and from the distance of the South, wife give him as much encouragement as possible.
Do you agree with that, Dr. Foster?
I feel that the important thing is for them not to make a final decision now. It's something to be worked out, and I think these two persons have such character and idealism that they should be together. And if they were to take a year or 2 years, even 3 years, to work toward the establishment of themselves here in the North and in teaching professions, that it could be realized and all these needs would be met.
Well, now, Dr. Montague says he thinks that she ought to go down south, and now you say the north. Is that
No,
right?
I meant she should go south and carry on her teaching for a year, 2 years, or 3 years, yes.
Ms. Hurst?
I agree. I think that it's probably at the time the only solution. And I think if the husband will be patient for another year, that things may begin to resolve themselves.
Well, certainly there's no reason why the overall permanence of a marriage need in any way be affected. On the other hand, it finally is the opinion of the board that if the man is forced to remain here because he can't return to his former position, and the wife does have a teaching position which she's had for many years and which she wants and which she finds she can return to, that to force her to give it up will not be the means of ensuring a good marriage. Certainly a temporary separation is not going to injure this marriage if love actually exists. As we express our thanks to our mediators and bring this session of the Court of Human Relations to a close, we think of the urgent need for attitudes of harmony and cooperative effort in our personal relationships. We all know the importance of security and of money. But you know, there is another kind of security. And in this regard, it's been said, it's good to have money and the things that money can buy. But it's good, too, to check once in a while and make sure that we haven't lost the things that money can't buy.